When people hear 6 days of creation, many immediately think of the creation versus evolution debate, like it is two teams in an eternal tug of war. That's complicated, but I want to look at this wider question of, are science and religion opposed? And my simple answer is no. For most of history, science and faith were studied by the same people. In fact, if you wanted to be a professor at a university in Europe, you usually had to be a clergyman. That is because universities grew out of monasteries and churches, where studying the world was seen as studying God's creation. Kepler, who discovered how the planets move, famously said, "Science is the process of thinking God's thoughts after him." For Kepler, doing science was worship, seeing more deeply how amazing God is. So where did this split come from? Well, it mostly happened in the 1800s. Some scientists were pushing to remove the requirements that professors had to be clergy, and they did this by selling the idea that faith was opposed to science. Over time, that turned into a story that we still hear today, that religion is about belief and science is about facts, as if they can't coexist. But that's not how science, as we know it today, began. Christian belief that God created an ordered and understandable world led to the development of the scientific method. Because people expected nature to follow consistent patterns, they began testing ideas and looking for evidence. Before that, people more often relied on tradition or guesswork rather than careful experimentation. I personally like the quote from former NASA scientist Robert Jastro's book, God and the Astronomers. At this moment, it seems as though science will never be able to raise the curtain on the mystery of creation. For the scientist who has lived by his faith in the power of reason, the story ends like a bad dream. He has scaled the mountains of ignorance. He is about to conquer the highest peak. As he pulls himself over the final rock, he is greeted by a band of theologians who have been sitting there for centuries. In other words, science, by following evidence, ends up bumping into the same big questions that religion has always asked. Why does anything exist? What caused it? Science doesn't replace faith. It runs right into it.